the High Court in Pietermaritzburg suspended the execution of the will of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini. This is pending a trial court determining the authenticity and validity of the signatures on that will.
In the result, I make the following order. 1. The execution of the last will and testament of the late His Majesty King Goodwill Zwelithini be and is hereby suspended pending the final determination of the action referred to in paragraph 3 of this order. 2. The 7th respondent be and is hereby interdicted and restrained from performing any functions or duties assigned to him in terms of the provision of the last will and testament of His late Majesty Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu. 3. The applicants are directed to institute an action challenging the authenticity and validity of the will referred to in paragraph 1 above within 15 days of this order, failing which the relief granted in paragraph 1 of this order shall lapse. 4. The costs are reserved for the trial court. And 5. The application for relief sought in prayers C, D, E, and F is dismissed with costs, such costs to include costs consequent upon the employment of 2 counsel.
Now, the court says the ruling does not affect the succession to the Zulu throne, as royal family members have the right to elect the new king.
The analysis: the applicant princesses have failed to establish a discernible correlation between the proceedings relating to the impeachment of the late Isilo's will and the identification and nomination of Prince Misuzulu as the successor to the Zulu royal throne by the royal family. The applicant princesses have also not shown a direct and substantial interest which can be adversely affected if Prince Misuzulu is appointed king of the Zulu nation.
The court has also dismissed Queen Sibongile Dlamini Zulu's quest for 50% of the late AmaZulu King Goodwill Zwelithini's estate. The court also ruled that the late monarch's customary marriages were valid.
The African Queen also challenges the will of the late Isilo insofar as it purports to deal with assets to which the African Queen has a legitimate claim arising from her marriage to the late Isilo. It has been argued on behalf of the first to fifth respondents that the executor has yet to wind up the late Isilo's estate. It is therefore premature to anticipate a dispute involving the executor which has not yet arisen. This matter was brought to court long before the estate of the late Isilo was reported to the Master of the High Court. This court is asked to preempt a dispute which may arise between the African Queen and the executor or other queens. The African Queen is entitled to lodge her claim with the executor in terms of the Estate Act. The African Queen has not made out a case in respect of any of the relief sought in the amended notice of motion. Therefore, the order made in this regard is that the application is dismissed with costs, such costs to include costs consequent upon the employment of senior counsel.
Let's speak now to King Misuzulu kaZwelithini's traditional Prime Minister, Inkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this afternoon. Perhaps if I can get your comment in terms of, firstly, homage being paid to you by Prince Thulani Zulu. He also mentioned that there are no winners or there are no losers here. Your assessment of today's developments?
Thanks very much for the opportunity. I would like to say that there's a tremendous relief within the Zulu nation following Justice Madondo's judgment today. We are grateful that he has laid to rest any argument that the king or Isilo was not properly identified by the royal family as the rightful heir to the throne, and has made it very clear that His Majesty King Misuzulu Zwelithini is indeed the undisputed successor to his father. We trust that this will open the way for His Majesty our King to finally be coronated. This is a legal formality only. As Justice Matondo has confirmed, the King is already the de facto King of the Zulu nation, as I've always said. I personally feel gratified that we may now see the stability that our nation has so longed for since the departure of His Majesty, our late King, almost a year ago. Now, this has been a painful time for the royal family and for the nation. We look forward to restored unity under the reign of His Majesty, our King, and I hope that he himself is ready, because this is a very big challenge to him, and he himself should be ready. The matters of the late King's estate and will shall be dealt with in accordance with today's judgment. We wish to thank Justice Matondo for his wisdom, for his fairness, and great care in judging this matter. And I thank Newzroom very much for giving me this opportunity to actually make this statement about this matter, which has caused so much distress and dissent in the Zulu nation.
Buthelezi, what does unity among the Zulu royal family and by extension the Zulu nation look like?
What does it look like? In fact, I've already said in my statement that I hope that this will restore unity, precisely because there were people who were actually using this issue to divide the royal family and to divide the Zulu nation. So my hope is that this judgment has laid to rest all this chaos that they created, and that will move forward from now onwards. I hope so, because when I last spoke to the president, in fact, he said to me that in order to comply with legislation, he was just waiting also for these matters to be dealt with in courts, and then he'll play his own role after that.
Judge Madondo mentioning there that Misuzulu kaZwelithini remains the undisputed successor to the Zulu throne. He's the rightful heir to the throne. You mentioned in your statement that you trust this will open the way for the coronation and you hope that he is ready to ascend to the throne. In terms of plans that are in place, is it now just a matter of pressing play? What happens now?
Well, of course, as I've just said, I've shared with you my conversation with President Ramaphosa just a few weeks ago, where he said to me that as soon as these cases were out of the way, then he will play his own role, which means that then he will then activate legislation, the legislation which empowers him actually to formalize the matter.
Your thought on the High Court suspending the execution of the will of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini?
I beg your pardon?
Your thought on the court suspending the execution of the will of the late King Goodwill Zwelithini?
No, I think that is inevitable. It was inevitable. It's inevitable that it should be dealt with separately, because really there was no nexus really between the issue of succession and issues of the estates. And it was very wrong for the Queen, actually, in the first place, to run to court to ask for 50% of the estate. I was involved, in this matter myself personally, because in the first place, when she married the king, arrangements were made by myself. At the request of the Queen, I'm the one who arranged for the priest to solemnize the marriage. After I asked the king, I asked him over and over again whether he really wanted to marry one woman, and depart from the culture. So I've been involved in the matter very closely from the outset.
Indeed. Thank you very much for joining us on the channel. But before we let you go, please do allow me, if you will, to just ask of your health. You look well. How are you feeling?
No, I'm fine. In fact, In fact, my doctor said on Wednesday that he can only see me again in May, which at 93 I thought was very promising, that he can only see me in May, because I thought that being old at 93 and actually therefore frail, that he would want to see me in another couple of weeks, but he said he can only see me in May.
Inkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi, siyabonga. Thank you very much for availing yourself to speak to us here on Newzroom Afrika.